he was the one that came from really the most affluent background, if you like, and he lived just on the road, or about to continue on to, with his Auntie Mimi and his uncle. His mother and father had never really got their marriage together, and when John was 5, Auntie Mimi, his mother's sister, took him to live with her because she felt that he was getting messed about living with a grandma and then another auntie and not really having a settled down. Some of you will be able to see a blue plant on the wall. John Lennon was born here, so the very house he was brought up in. He wasn't born there. You just got that there. Yes, okay, that's fine. So he was brought up in quite an affluent. Of course, his wife Linda died many years later of the breast cancer. So Paul, there's a Linda McCartney care centre particularly to them, and there is no way that is viable. As you all know, it's salaries that take the majority of the money, and it was for children with difficulties, and now they've had to be sort of absorbed into the system in other places. It's prime building land, and I suspect that they will sell it for an absolute fortune and build new houses on it, because that's what's happening. But just make sure we get there. This is the outer city ring road. Now we're going to walk down Mighty Street and have a little bit of Beatles, and we're going to have a look in the Anglican Cathedral, and you'll need a loo stop before you head up to where you're going. Right. And these are the outer suburbs. Now, why did they write about Penny Lane? Well, this is a big shopping area. John lived where we've just been. Paul, the song Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields. I'm wondering which was the A side. Those of you that remember buying singles, you bought one good one, and then you got a side that you never played again. So here we are at Penny Lane. Cynthia worked in the woolworths over on the right. We're going to turn left and go down. That's Penny Lane. That goes there.
Oh, there it is.
The shelter in the middle of the roundabout is now Sergeant Pepper's Bistro. The barber's shop is up on the left, and the bank, where the bank never wears a Mac in the pouring rain, very strange, that's over on the left. So this is Penny Lane, and all they wrote about was a simple little road that they knew. And when the record came out, as I say, it was a double A side, and that was quite different because that could have been two separate records, but they put the two Liverpool places on the same side. Does anybody know what the very, very first Beatles record was? I think I'm going to get it. But you wanted to hear it. You got to number 17 in the top 20, and we thought this was wonderful. You know, boys we knew were in the top 20. And of course, after that, there was no need to write because everything they did went to the top, and they had 17 number 1 hits. So I'm sorry about the bumps, Paul, but I'm afraid this is to stop people dashing madly. On the corner of Penny Lane, there's a church where Paul McCartney and his brother Michael sang in the choir. And when Paul was 11, he went from that church to audition to sing in the Cathedral choir, the Anglican Cathedral choir. And he failed the audition. He wasn't good enough. So when he was 50, he wrote his Liverpool oratorio, and he said it took him 39 years to get his own back for turning him down when he was 11. So that took a while, but he did it. And if there's a nameplate here just for Penny Lane, and it will stop briefly because if anyone wants to take a photograph, it's just that you're at Penny Lane, and we're just. Has everybody finished what they're doing? Yes, good. Glass house, you can see just through the trees. And next year, Tom, I'm inviting you now. I'm having a big party, and it's going to be, I'm having a milestone party, and it's going to be in the Palm House. So, Tom, if you'd like to come. You're welcome. What did he say?
No good again.
A few more stories about Tom.
Welsh, because when Liverpool grew from being a little seaport into a major seaport, people came from all over, particularly Wales and Ireland, to take advantage and to help this city to prosper as it did. And one thing that did happen in this city was in the 100 years between 1830 and 1930, 9 million people emigrated from Liverpool. 9 million men who won't eat tomatoes because they're red. I mean, how mad can you get? But they're not that fanatical, really. What happened? Liverpool is mainly a Victorian city, but there's some pockets of beautiful Georgian architecture. Queen Victoria came to the throne in 1837, so anything earlier than that is Georgian. And we've got a huge church coming up on the left, and this is the sort of multicultural of Liverpool, because of the port, and of course people have stayed, and they're still evident in the city, which gives it its particular mix. And then soon we'll be coming to the Catholic Cathedral, and I understand from they're far superior to many of the later houses. Now, just to go over, and I'll just, at the Catholic Cathedral, spend a bit of time there and walk along to the Anglican Cathedral, where we will meet you. I should imagine it'll be 20 past 10. We've got quite a bit to do. So at least it isn't raining.
Yes.
It isn't raining yet. But either birds, and those going on the tour, we'll get a closer look at them, because that's the symbol of our city. This is Hope Street, and Hope is what joins the two cathedrals. At one end we have a Catholic cathedral designed by a non-Catholic, and at the other end we have an Anglican cathedral designed by a Catholic, and that's Liverpool. Straight ahead of you and over on the right is the most beautiful pub in the city. It was built for the elite. It's called the Philharmonic Dining Rooms. You can see where the flowers are, straight ahead and slightly to the right. As we turn right, look at the gate, is the Anglican Cathedral. It's just this one road that connects the two, and I hope you'll make your way along there. Up to the right. Those who are leaving, if you'll get your things together, I hope you've got your mats and umbrellas just in case. So you can see the tea room at the Catholic Cathedral. You can see the cathedral. This is just literally made of red brick. Before Victorian times, higher education was the privilege of the few, and in Victorian times education became more readily available, and all the great cities got their red brick universities because red was one big building. So because they needed schools, 8, 10, 12 children was a norm, and they needed schools and they needed parish churches. And Liverpool ended up with 135 Catholic churches, which I think you'll agree is a very large number. So Liverpool, this is great fun, as you can see. And Tom, I hope they do get it right. And as we come up here, we're going to head down towards the dock area and to the waterfront, because it was the sea that made Liverpool particularly important in Victorian times. Today, the premiere of John, George, Paul, Ringo and Bert was held at this little Everyman Theatre on the left. Bert was the Beatle who didn't make it, and there are lots of Berts around Liverpool, because you hear a number of people who say, I could have been one of the Beatles, except my wife or my mother wouldn't let me, and my girlfriend, and I had a baby, and all sorts of excuses why they didn't make it into the Fab Four. And of course my friend Ringo only got in on the very last minute when they sacked a far better drummer, and even Richie will admit that, whose name is Pete Best. Is the building where Paul McCartney and George Harrison went to school. It was the best boys' school in Liverpool. And just slow down nicely, Paul. Here's your luggage. on your right, and you see the luggage,
Yeah.
you can have a chat and do all sorts of things. And it's just a piece of street furniture, but I think it works very, very well indeed. So we're going to head, it's been 10 miles, and I don't think they'll ever build like this again. It certainly won't in this country because the cost would be phenomenal. And that took 74 years to build. Over on the right is LIPA, the Liverpool Institute for the Performing Arts, which, like the School of Fame in New York, is a centre of excellence for media studies. I'm waiting for the day when they have golden oldies, because people from all over the world have made their homes here, and we have Europe's longest established Chinatown. People from China have lived here for, I think, 200 dragons on it, and 5 boats. It's all highly symbolic, and the craftsmen came from China to erect that arch, and it's the largest Chinese. Rather worried looking young lady. She doesn't know we've got the Michael Schumacher of the coaches with us. So not Foster's, but British Real Ale, and that's where it's made here. So we're coming down onto the dockland, and this is the heart really of our city. We'll go through. Changing my mind because we're moving along. We're really into a bit of the rush hour, still a little bit later than it had been. And as we come along this road, you'll see a lot of work being done. You'll see a new shopping centre being constructed. 4 of us for a walk. My mum would go home and make the Sunday dinner, and she always made apple pies. And then my dad would take the 4 of us for a walk, and we always ended up coming down to the waterfront because my father had gone to sea. And then when my mother had the 4 children in the 1930s, my mother didn't like him going to sea, and he gave up the job. So he was always walking us down to look at the river. And we used to walk past the half-finished Anglican Cathedral. And my dad would say to me, one day that cathedral will be finished. I won't be here to see it, but you will. And I'm sure that's when I started guiding with my dad as a very little girl, because my dad was really into the city. And it ended up, I was the youngest of 4, and I ended up the only one who'd go out with my dad, because he never knew when to turn back. If your legs could walk, the largest Grade 1 listed building, 23 million bricks went into it. It was built purely as, just as dock, as warehousing really, and look at the construction of it. Absolutely marvellous building just as brick warehousing. This road we're on now used to be the water line. It's a symbol of our city, and there's a Liverpool joke that says there's a male bird and a female bird. The female bird is the one on the left tower. She's looking out to sea to see if her man is coming home, and the bird we won't go on to the boulevard because it is a large coach. So this is the pier head, and this is where those 9 million people left for the New World. On the left is the Maritime Museum, which holds that great maritime history of this city. In front of you is the River Mersey, which leads to the Irish Sea, which in turn leads to the Atlantic. And this area, the road we've just come off, was originally the water line, and this area here was a dock. And as you know, as ships get bigger, they need a deeper draft in the water. This was an early dock and it was too shallow. So at the beginning of the 20th century, they filled this area in, and they built these large buildings, built as Harland and Wolff, of course, in Belfast, and in World War II. And all the buildings were flattened, and Queen Victoria withstood the bombing. And I've got a photograph of her with everything else bombed to the ground. And Queen Victoria, because if you're interested in the Beatles, this is where it all began. The Cavern Club is where the Beatles appeared 292 times. I worked in a convent school, and around our city. So the Beatles go on, and it is big industry. I got married just 2 months before Love Me Do, so he came very late to the Beatles, and it was really a matter of personalities. In any group of 4 people, you only need 2 leads, and that is a job creation scheme. And over on the left are the civic buildings, the libraries, the museums, the art galleries, our former law courts, which are now is Lime Street Station, which is the intercity rail station, and to the right of that is a 60s block. Get rid of it, so I'm delighted, because I've been petitioning about that for ages. I'm a guide. And we're retracing a little bit of our steps, because we're going to go, those of you who didn't, I did go to a convent for many years and worked in one. So they do say the convent girls are the ones with the most developed sense of humour, shall we say.
Design this, and I think you'll all say as visitors, that's a very symbolic thing of England, isn't it? The little red photographs. So that used to be outside in the road, and then in our wisdom we decided we were going to have different ones.
With this group. I think you're in for a fun time.
You try them for a month.
Right? Is that a challenge? So you've had a look at head down. Just talking about the emigration, we're back at the Chinese Arch Nut, as you can see. But if you look straight ahead, that building that says 1887 on it, that was a hostel where people are waiting their journey to the New World, to well, Canada and America mainly, but also New Zealand, Australia, South Africa. No, Cross route, no, they've closed that off. It wasn't closed on Monday when it came round. Let's go around the back. Right there. Yeah, okay. We always do. I've only done that today because I was down on the other day. It's fun, isn't it? Here's the bus route. Okay, let's go through this way. We'll see where we go. Diverted traffic. I didn't notice that, sorry, but I was here Tuesday and that hadn't happened. We'll go down this way.
even then she'd be, what, 65 or something like that, so I mean, she'd pretty good for that. But she did say that John...
It's only now they're knocking down many of those old buildings that really were a scar on the face of the city and replacing them with more up-to-date buildings. And of course they're looking forward to their quite a number of old Scandinavian words have crept into everyday usage in the English language and are only found in this corner of England. You will not find them elsewhere. I'll give you just a few examples of war. And if you look closely, for example, ahead to our right, some of them actually go up the hillside, right across the top, and if we had the ability to look through, they go down the other side as well. But first of all, from England itself, Charles Lamb, De Quincey, Hazlitt, the blind English poet John Milton. Like a mountain goat, you know, through the some of the narrow passes further up in the mountain.
Is it not more just one? Now
Windermere Lake is England's largest lake. It's 10.5 miles long, a mile wide at the widest point, 220 feet deep in the deepest. On this cruise until the whole northern basin of Lake Windermere, we're going to head to the southern basin first. The lake's almost divided up into the two separate basins. Now on this lake this week there's been a steam launch convention where they've been driving up and down the lake in steamboats from all over England. You can see one of them coming down the lake ahead of us here on the left hand side. You'll probably see quite a few more on the way up to Ambleside as we pass the Steamboat Museum a bit later on. There's one coming up on your left hand side now. The boat just where you go around to go up the stairs. There's a bar downstairs serving tea, coffee, soft drinks, beer, lager, spirits, crisps, biscuits and hot chocolate. One of each species of tree that's native to the British Isles. It's a very popular place for going trekking, mountain biking and walking. So it's like down to your left hand side. If you didn't know, Beatrix Potter used to live just over the tops of the hills here to your left. And a pub's in Bowness. The lilies of the valley out to your left hand side. The island out to your left hand side here is Thompson. It's the second largest island on Lake Windermere. It's a very popular island for people to row out to and go picnicking on during the summer months, as you can sit on the northern tip of the island and look into the northern basin of Lake Windermere. Now you'll get that view in a couple of minutes time once we clear the island. Church in Bowness on your way in just before you got today. That's St Martin's Church. That church was built with a brickwork and the chapel was taken from Ladyhood. The island down to your left hand side now. All the remains of the island come down steps in the stonework of where the chapel used to be. Now the black birds you can see roosting in the trees there, these are cornbirds. They're normally a coastal bird, but they're moving more and more inland. Unfortunately, the droppings are acidic, it burns the bark and leaves off the trees, causing the damage you can see out to your left-hand side. They can eat twice their own body weight in fish, famous for being in the ITV show, The Swallows and the Amazons, based on the book written by Sir Arthur Ransom, who was captain of the houseboat. And both tied up to the right about the white bull and the white funnel did make it to the end of its life without going bad. That's the Steamboat Museum out to your right hand side. As I say, on the way up down we'll take a look and see a few more steamboats moving in and around the lake. If you look ahead of us, there's another jet just crossing the lake over there, heading over to the left hand side. Coming down the left hand side. On this end of the building that was used to summon the ferry back across from the other side. Now, it still lives in there, and it's owned by a National Trust. The oldest building on the shores of Lake Windermere, built in 1612. It was built to hide the Manchester pumping station. They had to dig down 200 feet, build the station and replace earth back on top of it in order to get line permission. We're now passing up the two large intakes of the pumping station, and when it's running at full capacity, it's capable of lowering the level of the lake by 1 inch per day. But the garlic water after being times a severe drought. Manchester pumping station under the hill to your right hand side there on the shoreline. Lake Windermere, the large black veranda with the flagpoles hanging out of it, was what they used to load the stagecoaches on the way from London to Edinburgh and vice versa. The other bits of the building, the left and right, were added in the last 25 years, making it the largest hotel on the shores of Lake Windermere. It has conference facilities, wedding halls, a sports centre on the left-hand side of bistro, and it has sports facilities on this shore of the lake, just on the other side of the road. Lowood Hotel out to you. Now you can see one of the more traditional launches of the fleet out to your left-hand side there. That's the Queen of the Lake. They do trips from Waterhead and beside, which is where we'll be landing shortly. Just out to your left-hand side there. The building behind it to the right is called Highton Hill. This used to be an all-boys school. Recently converted into flats though. Diesel in the 1980s, but in continual service all its life. During the Second World War it was used to train naval officers.
As well. Now that's a one-off in this part of the world. The warm waters of the Gulf town of Ambleside, which lies at the head of Lake Windermere. A lot of the buildings are built of the local stone. It's a type of slate found in quarries here in this area. Very attractive type of building stone. You'll notice lots of the buildings just ahead of us, including asking about them along the way there to our left of Bowling Green. They're not always just by the roadside for us, but you'll find them. You'll find them around. A kind of unusual looking tree ahead on the corner to our left called Colombian monkey tree. Just there on the corner to our left. And a bit further up to our left, just by the roadside, we'll have a rather unusual little building. Just ahead there to our left, just past the white van.
It's not over the street, so it's good.
Actually, the village ahead of us is called Rydal, or Y-D-A-L. It was in a building there in Rydal that Wordsworth died in the year 1850. He was 80 years of age. A building that's not visible from this road, a bit further north. Just ahead, we're about to pull in on the right into the parking area. And
Just took you back.
places to have our evening meal dinner not included this evening. And lots of places there to eat, and I really mean lots of places. And then tomorrow morning, well, we leave the Lake District, being up Gretna, then through part of the Scottish lowlands. Short drive will take us to the city of Glasgow. We'll be into Glasgow for lunch, yes, before lunch. Just ahead on the right-hand side, that little 17th century building.
I'll speed it up.
Just ahead, on the right.
Be curious just to see it. Oh, this is it.
There we have it, just on the right.
Look at the big dogs there. Oh my God. That was one of them ones with it's like an or lamb chops. I didn't know. I hadn't seen that much more. But this
If they have pork, they just bring up the pork over the Christmas going and all that your
inside.
yeah,
You know,
this is where they get off, right?
yeah. Well, it's all Lake Windermere. This is Cathedral.
And Lake Windermere, keeping us company
See, it's
just for a little while there to our right. You'll notice a building a bit further ahead to our left. It's now a hotel. It used to be, well, an old night park just off to our left. From here.
Oh, yeah.
And just ahead of us here, the Windermere Hydro